So how significant would the phasing out of coal be? Joan MacNaughton is chair of the climate group and is at COP26. She says while it's a positive step, it's just part of the jigsaw.
This is the decade when we really have to act to reduce emissions significantly if we're going to keep the goal of 1.5-degree limit to global warming in view. Now, history shows that globally, since Paris and even before then, we make commitments and actually we then raise our ambitions afterwards. So I think that's important, and I think that's going to be one of the messages from this COP, is that we must keep monitoring where we are and where we could be. From the climate group perspective, we work with subnational governments and businesses, and one example of increased ambition and outperformance is Scotland, where we are now for the COP. The Scottish Government committed to reduce its emissions by 42% by 2020, and it actually reached that goal early in 2014. In fact, it outperformed. It reduced emissions by 45%, and that's given them confidence to set a goal for net zero in Scotland of 2045.
Now, many countries and regions are grappling with an energy crisis over supplies and prices. How much is that impeding efforts, do you think, to move towards greener energy sources?
What we mustn't do is take the wrong lessons from the energy supply issues we're confronting at the moment. The lesson that we should slow down the transition to clean energy will be a big mistake. We've made terrific progress on renewables, and the costs have come down, the technologies are improving all the time. Perhaps what hasn't kept up with the progress of renewables have been the incentives and policy changes that governments need to make to change the system to allow renewables to operate to everyone's satisfaction. So they should be putting more emphasis on storage, they should be putting more emphasis on the flexibility of the electricity system, but the wrong lesson would be to lock in more emissions from fossil fuels and make the countries subject to that incredible volatility of fossil fuel prices, which is rightly a concern at the moment.
You've worked with governments and businesses across your career, and this is not your first COP to attend. What's your gut sense of how this one has gone?
The key thing I think I'd like to see from this COP, which hasn't yet been landed, is that we finish the rule book for Paris. So what is called Article 6, which will enable a price to be put on carbon worldwide, trading in carbon, and for the money to flow to where it can have most impact soonest, because that's the economically rational thing to do. We've got so much to do in such a short time that we have to maximise the impact of everything we're doing. But that's one of the big changes from a few years ago, is just how many investors are putting a premium now on emissions reduction, and that's sending a key signal to business about what they need to do to get their own house in order.